दिशन्तु मे देव सदा त्वदीयाः दयातरङ्गां जराः कटाक्षाः श्रोत्रेषु पुंसाम् अमृतं क्षरन्तीं सरस्वतीं संश्रितः कामधेनुः. A very good evening to the gathering here. Wouldn't you say back? Yeah. So, it's a pleasure to be at one of the colleges, an institution that bears the name of one personality called Swami Vivekananda, who believed that modern thoughts can always be judiciously interspersed with traditional values. I am at an institution where people have served selflessly and tirelessly for decades, and thanks to the people who had the thought of inviting me. First of all, thanks to the Swamijis who are present on the stage, the dignitaries of the dais, Professor Sri Ram, and all the student volunteers, especially Arvind and Vishnu, and to all those who gathered here. So the topic chosen for the day is Bhagavad Gita. While I used to be on the other side just a few years back, I used to keep waiting when the chief guest will end his address. So that used to be the custom. I hope I don't get that boring. I hope I don't get the audience to watch their watch. So I hope the speech is going to be interesting. If not entertainment, at least some amount of infotainment. I mean, not match the OVR army, but still, I'll try my level best to create a portrait which is an OVR. So, the topic chosen for the day is Bhagavad Gita, the perspective from management. Very rightly said, our scriptures can be equated to a Mona Lisa painting. A Mona Lisa painting and the smile, the mysterious smile of Mona Lisa is often interpreted by the onlooker. So the way, the angle in which I see it, the thoughts that run in my mind, and the way I see it in the background is what I interpret it as. So are our scriptures. So Bhagavad Gita, or in fact any other scripture, be it Srimad Ramayana, Sri Mahabharatam, or Vishnu Sahasranamam, all of these works can be taken onto a management perspective. Let's take up 4 subtopics. One is communication. Krishna was one of the best public speakers. What is public speaking? Public speaking involves a lot of hard work that comes into communication skills. In fact, there's one place in Ramayana where Rama was wondering where his wife was. Rama was married only once. He was an exception in those days. In those days, most kings were married many times and they used to have many wives. So it was not a ration card, it was a ration book. So they used to make, of course they had a lot of capability to maintain so many. But still, they used to have so many wives and Rama was an exception. It's just like the L hospital rule. Sin x by x, sin 0 by 0, 0 by 0 is indeterminate. So you'll have to differentiate the numerator and denominator separately. Sin x becomes cos x becomes 1, cos 0 is 1. So he was an exception. If I am checked head to toe, I come under the general rule. But Bhadra has never checked, so he's an exception. So Rama was an exception because he was married only once. He lost that wife too. So on a management perspective, they always say Krishna is a better husband than Rama because Krishna never let his 16,108 wives to be kidnapped. So Rama had to lose his wife for abduction. So he came with his brother Lakshmana seeking where his wife was. At that point in time, he comes across a district called Bellari. Where is Bellari? Karnataka. So the Reddy brothers are very close to it. So he came to Bellari district, to the ruins called Hampi, which was the erstwhile capital of a dynasty called Vijayanagara. So he comes near a mountain called as Rishyamukha Parvatam. See, listening is an art. Physically being present is wonderful, but making your ears, which are already open, more open will help the lecture, because we are going to have a question paper at the end of it. You have not told of it? Oh, you kept it as a surprise. Sorry, I leaked it. Okay. So, when we speak, we know who's listening and who's not. What happens is, suddenly if I raise my voice, someone start nodding. That means they were not hearing before. So, these are all little nuances that come in public speaking. Nevertheless, Rama and Lakshmana came in search of Sita. That's when they spotted the Rishyamukha Parvatam. And from the cave inside the mountain, Sugriva was able to see two gym-bodied men coming. So he was a bit aghast. He thought these were the people who were dispatched by his elder brother Bali, whom he was having a tiff with. So he immediately employed his political advisor. It was not Cho then, it was Hanuman. So he said, Hanuman, why don't you go and just check who these two men are? Just indicate from there. Just indicate from there. Indicate is generally done through eyes. See, whenever you sit for a lecture where you have no way out, you have no other help. But if you've got an open door, how do you ask the other person to get up when the person is speaking and boring? You do that, right? At least in India we can try with our eyes. In China we can't do that too. So, Tamvikshya tells Rama, look, Hanuman, Sugriva tells Hanuman, just look at me through your eyes, and your eyes are better enough for an indication to tell me just run away from this place. And Hanuman thought, as a monkey, he was an extraordinary monkey. I'm calling him an extraordinary because he had nothing in extra. The extraordinary factor of Hanuman was because he could speak a language thoroughly. Even humans can't do today, but monkeys could do then. So he was a bit flabbergasted and a bit perplexed. If I would go in the form of a monkey, which is my true form before Rama, probably the person will be surprised as to how a monkey can speak. See, you go to Mandalore Zoo with your parents, your family, whoever. Assuming that you're going to see creatures which are of a somewhat a factor lower than what you are. You are with the sixth sense, and what is the seventh sense? Maribu, right? So we are the Maribu or Maribu. You go to see those with the fifth sense. So they lack one sense. You go stand up near a stage and you have monkeys inside running hither and thither, and one monkey comes before you and says, Avikaraya Shuddhaya Nityaya Paramatmane. This sentence. Wouldn't you get the thought that you should be inside it and that should be out? So, Hanuman wanted to go in the disguise of a human being. So he tied up his tail with a rubber band. He stood right in front of Rama to prove that he's just a normal human being with a puffed up face and not a monkey actually. But then he went before Rama and said, Ayatascha subrittascha bahavaha parigopamaha sarvabhushana bhusharhaha kimartham na vibhushitaha. This was the only verse he said. Let's not get into the meaning of what it is. What is this ayataha, suvrittaha, why that cha is and, why did he use that and all that. This sentence was picture perfect. It was grammatically so correct. Just one sentence he spoke. Orubanai sottukku oru soru padam. This sentence was enough to prove that he was a great public speaker. So Rama, upon listening to this flawless, blemishless, absolutely beautiful sentence of Hanuman, turned towards Lakshmana and said 4 verses. Listen, mark it. If you intently, sincerely, if it from the bottomest of your heart, however bottom you can get, if you listen to these verses, I'm sure you will be a big competitor to Modi. What is his communication skills? Nan Rigveda Vinitasya na Yajurveda Dharinaha na Samaveda Vidushaha Shakyamevam Prabhashitum Nonam Vyakaranam Kritsnam Anena Bahudhashrutam Bahuvyaharathanena na Kinchit Apashabdidam Avistaram Asandigdham Adhritam Avilampitam Urastam Kanthakam Vakyam Vartate Madhyamesware Samskara Kramasampanna Udhritam Avilampitam Ucharayati Kalyani Vacham Hridaya Harini. These are the 4 verses. What is it? When you speak, don't assume that only if you're a chief guest you have to speak. Even for a job interview you need to speak. To keep your job within your hands without getting the pink slip, you need to speak. So the speaking is an art. How do we speak? When you speak, first you should maintain an eye contact. Because when you maintain an eye contact, the person will even be worried to scratch that nose. Suppose a person is scratching and I'm keeping looking at him, slowly his hand will go down and he'll start listening. So first maintain the eye contact, because people are worried, they'll start looking here. Actually, I wanted to tell one thing. Today, don't do that. Be confident, look at the other person's face. This is what Ramayana teaches. You don't have to especially do your MBA to learn it. Just sitting patiently for 1 hour through a Ramayana lecture will make you a good public speaker. Adhrutam avilambitam. You should not talk words in a very slow pace. Today, all of you, if I speak in this pace, when will I complete? I have got another program to go. So, pace. Neither should it be very fast. Some people assume that by speaking fast, the listener will not be able to understand and will never question. That should not be the art. Next, vartate madhyamesware. Without, it's on a lighter vein with no harm meant. I used to keep watching these pattimandrams in our television channel. The judge will never go away. Solomon Papaya can't even run. But I'm sure the speaker who catches the mic will be shouting at the high pitch. He's not going anywhere. He's seated there only. You can just make your point by not shouting. So everybody can't get a TRP by being an Arnab Goswami, right? So you need to learn how to manage your pitch. All this is said in Ramayana. Just because I'm trying to give you modern verses from English, it doesn't mean that I'm trying to give verses from my figment of imagination. All this has come in Ramayana. Next, make your content right. 20 days back, I was in Pudukkottai for a lecture. Apparently, before my 1 hour lecture, there was a small program where the chief guest was invited, and I didn't see the invitation. It was a political figure. So I should have known that the content will be absolutely zero in that case. Nevertheless, that person came. He had the mic like this. Anbirkuriya, Chandrasekhan Ayya avargalukku. Anbirkuriya, 75 Anbirkuriyas. So that took like 40 minutes of the time. He didn't even know the basic maths rule of Bodmas, where he could have put that Anbirkuriya and brackets all the names. So, public speaking, it becomes very important that you know what you're going to speak and make sure that your listener is engaged throughout that lecture. Even a job. So, the first perspective is communication skills. Where do we see that? In Bhagavad Gita. Who is speaking in Bhagavad Gita? You have to say something. I believe most of your mouths will be in the functioning basis, because in the banks you go, whenever you go, they say the server is down. I hope your mouths are still up. Tell me, who's speaking in Bhagavad Gita? Krishna. Okay, thank God. Had I been in Andhra, they would have said N.T. Ramarao. So, Krishna is speaking. Krishna speaks, and who is the listener? Thank God. So, I'm really happy about your college that you're all giving the correct answer in unison. You know, there was this Kaun Banega Crorepati where Amitabh Bachchan, the man with the tall figure with the baritone voice, he asked, which of these, who amongst the four, is not the wife of Dasharatha? Kaushalya. Option B, Kaikeyi. Option C, Sumitra. Option D, Sita. Who is it? That person said audience poll. So, he should have been sent to the Taliban then. So, the point that we are trying to make is content or awareness is something that we all need to acquire day in and day out. I don't know whichever that Mahanubhava said, ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is never bliss. Knowledge is bliss. So, Krishna speaks. And when Krishna speaks, Arjuna listens. See, for a person to speak and the other person to listen is not amazing. But imagine where he is doing it. He is doing it on the battlefield. Imagine, all our Indian troops have gone to Doklam area. The Chinese troops have all come there. Suddenly Arun Jaitley goes there and tells, I will give you 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Who will have the intent to listen? So Krishna must have been a super speaker to actually have an audience on the battlefield when the Kauravas and Pandavas with 11 Akshauhinis and 7 Akshauhinis waiting to say 1, 2, 3 and go. Boom, start. And he's giving a lecture. He should have been a super public speaker. So what is important for a public speaker? One, communication skills. Second, the way you carry yourself. Your body language. You should not stand erect, you should not get nervous. Some people start sweating, they may have a close to a massive or an attack there when they get onto the stage. Don't do that. Be confident, speak what you want, but frame your sentences. Thinking and speaking should go both hand in hand. Actually, then the next words, I was actually, that should not happen in your mind. When I say I, the difference between the thinking and speaking should be 2/5 of a second. Then only you can speak. You take time to think and then time to speak, and then you leave a huge valency bond in the middle. Nobody is going to come and fill that. So communication skills, which is very, very important for a management professional. If you say that I'm a BBA student, I'm going to do my MBA, and you end up saying, oh, I don't know how to speak in public, I can't even speak to my brother or sister, then sorry, you should rethink about your course. Because management involves public speaking, and public speaking just is not about speaking to your mother or father, it is also about speaking to 10 other people. So this is the first lesson that we learn from Bhagavad Gita. Second, ethics. I remember in 2011, while I used to work for a pharmaceutical company, and pharmaceutical companies have departments like finance, HR, marketing, sales. So marketing is that department which thinks how to market their medicines. You're aware, right? Today, paracetamol, is it a brand name or is it a molecule name? But in what brands does it come? Cipla is a company. So what is the Crocin? Crocin? Dolo. Okay. So now the doctor today, any molecule, does he write the molecule or the brand? Now the same molecule, the same way of manufacturing, same level of purity, same level of quality assurance, but the doctor does not write the molecule, he writes the brand. So that brand should be at the tip of his pen. How do I ensure that? That is why medical companies resort to gifts. You know gifts, right? So they resort to gifts. So we were planning for our gifts. That's when one of the marketing managers was talking to one of his subordinates, and that subordinate apparently happened to be my friend, still not a part of the big boss. So she came up to me and she said, I'm just going for a meeting in, I'll be out in another 10 minutes, then let's go for a coffee break. I said, fine. And in 10 minutes she came with tears down her cheeks. Bashpavari paripurna lochana. So I was wondering whether these tears were of joy or of sorrow, because in Tamil you've got Ananda Kandi, and they say that tears that come out of joy will be cold, and those that come out of sorrow will be hot. I don't know what is going to come at the end of the lecture, but still, you can try it out. So, she came with tears rolling down her cheeks. I asked her what happened. She said, I told my manager, why don't we present some good sneakers, some good shoes to our doctors for trekking. And she showed one sole, the shoe's sole, to the manager. And that manager, in a fit of craze and unwarranted wrath, threw that sole onto her face. She came running. I was aghast. I was totally upset. Is this a way a person who's so-called an MBA professional marketing manager behaves? I did not know how to react. I told her, don't cry, let's go for a coffee, I'll buy you a coffee, and things like that. That night I thought, what a dirty human being I am. That when a person is being humiliated in a so-called ethical company, and when I don't stand up to the rights of that person, how can I afford to call myself a professional? I still repent for it. The next day I went, I was a whistleblower, and I saw to it that the marketing manager was thrown out. So, ethics become very, very important. Why was Bhagavad Gita recited? Because it was meant for Arjuna to fight. See, this is a beautiful book where the philosophy is explained for a person to fight. Philosophy is generally meant to stop a war. This is meant to start a war. How come? Because Krishna said it was your duty to fight. Earlier, when Krishna said don't fight, let's go through diplomatic channels, that time Arjuna stood up like a hero and said, I need to fight. Now when everything was ready and they were on the battlefield, Arjuna said, look at that person who represents the Dumbledore of Harry Potter. He is my great-grandfather called Bhishma. Krishna said, don't get emotional now. He's just not your grandfather now. He has been there for years together. Didn't you realize then? Are you realizing it now? See, imagine you go to a doctor. He checks up everything and says that your brain isn't blocked, but your heart is blocked. So you need to get you cannot go by the highway. So you need to go by the bypass. So he tells you, let's get the bypass done for you. I said, doctor, how much should I pay? He said, pay 1.25 lakhs plus GST. What is the GST? Even Jayatri is confused about it. So you go pay it and you go to the receptionist and you pay. I pay that 1.25 plus GST, whatever, VAT, everything I pay. Next morning, I am made to sit on a stretcher. Relatives are gathered around me, doubtful whether I'll survive or not. So they push me inside the theatre. The doctor comes in. He puts in his mask. He looks at me and he's petrified all of a sudden. And he remembers one line from the previous day lecture of Ramakrishna Math, which says, Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. And he says, I will not operate you, I'll go back. What will I do? I'll say, I'll give you 1 more lakh. Please cut me open. Do whatever you want and make me survive. Vaada naruthu chudinum maruttuvan paal maalaada kaadal noyalan pol theera tuyartharinum vittuva kottamma naara unadarude paarpanadiyene, tells the mystic saint Kulashekara Alvar. So Krishna said it is high time that you fight. But he said, be careful of ethics. You know, Arjuna was one of those hero figures those days. Most women who were unmarried used to have a big portrait of Arjuna in their bedrooms and used to worship that one day he could be their husband. He was a hero those days, okay? So Arjuna was such a hero that every city or every town he just goes, even for supervision, he'll end up having a wife there. Arjuna was once on an expedition to get missiles. He didn't have an Israel and a Netanyahu then, so he had to go all the way to Devaloka. Indra was the person there, and Indra used to have a department called PDD. Have you heard of PWD? PWD. PDD? No, this is Public Penance Destruction Department. So any rishi who performs penance, Indra used to have a department called PDD. The members of that association were Menaka, Urvashi, Ramba, Tilottama. So any rishi who performs penance, these people will go and disturb. So the leader for that particular association, imagine the secretary or president, who was that? She was called Urvashi. Uru in Sanskrit means the thigh. It seems that the Lord was challenged to produce a beautiful damsel, and he said, I don't need to create a damsel, it's all coded in my thigh. And he hit upon the thigh. From the Uru came a beautiful damsel, and she was called Urvashi. So Urvashi became the secretary to that association, and it was then when Arjuna wanted to get some missiles. So he came all the way to Devaloka. The capital of Devaloka was called? Amaravati. Very good, Amaravati. So Naidu will be very happy in Andhra that he shares the name of the capital of the Devaloka too. So he went to Amaravati. Indra was very happy. See, Indra was so happy that he was ready to share his throne, his seat with Arjuna, because he was his biological son. So he was very happy that generally Indra doesn't get into seat sharing like Mufti, but still he was ready to share half the throne with Arjuna. So Arjuna came all the way, he sat, and Indra asked, how can I help you, Arjuna? And Arjuna said, I've come here to master the science, the art of missiles. So that's when Indra said, I'm so pleased. You're such a great warrior. You have such a great ambition. I know about your aiming. So I'll give you all these missiles. So he gave missile after missile after missile after missile. Have you heard of this word called Shastram? Just tell, okay, you've heard, I'm not going to question you, don't worry. So Shastram and Astram, what is the difference between the two? Astram is a weapon. Is also a weapon. Okay, yeah? Object. Okay, next, subject. Next. Okay, I'll give you a simple formula. Shastram is any object. that object which is induced with a mantra becomes an astram. So Shastra plus mantra becomes astram. This is a Shastram. If I induce Vayu mantram into it, it will become Vayavastram. If I induce Agni mantram into it, it will become Agneyastram. So Shastra plus mantra is equal to Astram. That's why even minds become weapons. Where have they become weapons? In Parliament. Have you seen people beating it? So they have learned the art of Shastram. In those days, there used to be a great Veena artist called S. Balachandar. Have you heard of him? He was a great Veena artist. So he was invited to play the Veena. You know which place? In the Parliament. Look at the place where they chose Veena to be played. So he went there and all of them, it was a big fish market, chaos, pandemonium. So Balachandar was waiting with his Veena to play. Nobody was there ready to listen. But the next 45 minutes, they all listened thoroughly. You know why? He played the national anthem. So he played the national anthem, but national anthem doesn't last for more than 2 minutes. But how did he play for 45 minutes? He used all the nuances of Carnatic music and played Neraval, Alapana, Swaram, everything on that Desh Ragam to ensure that they all stood up for 45 minutes as a mark of punishment. So, ethical value. So Arjuna said, I need all those missiles. That is when Indra tells, I will give you all these missiles, but do learn dance and go. What dance? Classical dance. You are asking one hefty, gym-bodied personality with 6 packs. Now you learn Bharatanatyam dance. It would be such a humiliation. He has developed 6 packs, and now you ask him to stand up like Nataraja. What will he do? But Arjuna said, okay, let me learn. Indra said, listen, mark my words. Whatever you learn in classical dance is going to help you in the years to come. He went. You know who was his tutor? Urvashi. So Urvashi is a teacher and the student is Arjuna. So every day the newspaper used to be filled up with articles. Sources reveal that Urvashi was looking at Arjuna while she was teaching and things like that. So 1 year of training was over. Arjuna went and said, thanks for the teaching. What can I pay you? Nothing comes for free, right? What can I pay you? She said, I don't need anything. Look at how benevolent a teacher she was. I don't need anything. He insisted, no, I need to pay. I need to pay something. Please let me know your IFSC code or whatever. I'll be able to transfer. She said, I don't need any of those. I don't need any of those. I don't accept anything in cash after November 8th. So, and online transactions become too tough for me to maintain, so you don't give me anything. Not giving anything will also save time. So what can I give you? Asked Arjuna. Why don't you marry me? So he said, wow, the offer comes from you and that means a lot to me. But the beauty is, you're my grandmother. And she immediately took her purse, the vanity bag, and she checked. Everything was fine. The Godrej was working perfectly well. So what went wrong? What went wrong? He said, I don't know if you remember history, Urvashi, but I don't have amnesia. I can tell you what. My father's 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 father was a king called Pururavas. And if you remember Urvashi, at that point in time also, you existed with the same youth. And you managed and married my great-great-great-grandfather and you produced one child. And today, it will be very wrong for the grandson to marry the grandmother. So, though I may end up marrying in every town I go, I have the ethical practice of sticking to certain rules. So, Bhagavad Gita has a great thought. Ramanuja mentions this incident in his commentary called Ramanuja Gita Bhashyam about how Arjuna was ethical even at that point in time. So, if people had to languish in jails those days like Bhakta Ramadas, they used to suffer. Every jail cannot become a Parapanagrahara, right? So, they had to bear the torture. But when it comes to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the first of it is communication skills and second is sticking to or adhering to ethical values. Third comes the most important point of motivation. See, Naturally, when I study, I get my paper and I flunk. I get a zook, a zero. I don't know in bits we used to have our own terminologies. I hope you would have carved your own dictionary here. What do you get? What do you call for zero? Nobody gets it. Everybody is genius, I suppose. Okay, whatever. So, whenever you look at that paper, you feel a bit dejected. And you hear news articles wherein people say, that person failed, so that person committed suicide. My goodness, the worst of it. See, these subjects are of great use. At the same time, what decides your destiny is your hard work. Simple. Of course, there will be people who say, oh, I never studied, look at where I've gone, I've come up the ladder. It doesn't mean one should not study, one should study. That's why Bhagavad Gita has a very simple rule. Put in your efforts and work. Do not take the effect of the fruits to yourself. Because the fruits is not in your hand. For example, in a chemical reaction, if reactants react, it doesn't mean I have to get the intended product. Because the product coming depends on a lot of factors. The right volume of the reactants, the quality of the reactants, the heat conditions, the pressure conditions, all these should be in correct proportion for me to get the product. I have put in all the reactants, but getting the right reactant is not in my hand. Likewise, motivation is something that you need to put into yourself. See, Hanuman was asked to go in search of Sita. Simple story. Rama tells, I lost my wife, and he tells it to a person who has vowed to never marry. See, if you at least tell it to a married person, the married person may have some interest in seeing the other person's wife. This person has vowed that he will never see any other lady. And Rama tells, go in search of Sita, point number 1. And Hanuman asks, how will Sita be? Probably with 2 ears and 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and 2 hands. Hanuman was wondering, where will I go and search for such a person, because every other woman has it. So, second was this. Third, she was in a no man's land called Lanka. In those days, you never had the GPS, right? Today, GPS may even show you way till Vaikuntham. Vaikunthaloka Manimantam Margadali. How will you go to Vaikuntham using GPS? If you go by the Chennai auto, in the P cars, he will put his entire vehicle amidst 2 large buses and he'll tell, boy, say through and that's what he means by Vaikuntham. And this is the localized and customized GPS to Vaikuntham. So, here when we get to see the motivation, Hanuman goes to Lanka. He goes place after place after going through the immigration office. Which is the immigration office? Whenever you go to another country, you go to the immigration office. There was a lady called Lankini. So Lankini said, where have you come? Show me your passport. He said, out of diplomatic relations, I thought it's visa on arrival, so I have not brought one. So she gave a knock at Hanuman's head. Hanuman thought it's not good to always show the other part of your head for a knock. Let me do a tit for a tat. And he gave one knock onto her head. And she managed to remember what she had forgotten. You know, there's a custom in the Indians. If you have to remember something that you've forgotten, if you see the women and the men of the ancient and the traditional homes, they'll hit on their head. Some of the TVs and computers also work that way. So if you give it one knock, it works. So, immediately this Lankini said, I was cursed to be the immigration officer in Lanka and I was asked to get back to my celestial abode once I am being struck by an extraordinary monkey. This is a verse from Kamban's Ramayana. So, Lankini left. So, Lanka was left with no immigration officer. She went inside. It was midnight. He went house after house with no result. He couldn't find a beautiful woman like Sita. Then he went to the harem of Ravana. Then he saw a beautiful lady decked with all possible ornaments from, I think there's an antique jewellery advertisement going by Prince Jewellery now, whatever it was. So she tried getting decked with that and she was sleeping in a very comfortable position next to Ravana. Hanuman has never been with a woman. He doesn't know how easy or how tough it is to manage a wife. So he thought this must be Sita. So he started kissing his tail. நம்ம தமிழில் சொல்லும்போது மனிதனுக்கு அது வாலு அப்படின்னா, ஆனால் குரங்குக்கு வாலு தான் PhD பண்ண மாதிரி. If it has a tail, it is equivalent to a doctorate degree. So he started teasing his tail. Aspotayamasa chuchumba pucham nananda chikrida jagau jagama stambanaroham nipapadabhumam nidarshayam swam prakritim kapinam. That is when he realized, will the lady who is so-called the obedient wife of Rama be sleeping next to a third person? This cannot be Sita. So he goes kitchen after kitchen. He searches for Sita. He finds meat of all forms cooked. Varahanam, Ayuranam, cha bhagashaha. The peacocks were all cooked. Hope you don't go and inform Yogi ji about this. So, everything of it was cooked. And then he starts searching for Sita. He couldn't find. Then he goes to a beautiful garden called Ashoka Vatika. Then he sits atop a tree called the Simshupa Vriksham. And he's thinking, where is the Sita? And then he thinks, if I go and inform Rama that I was unable to find Sita, then he will die. There are husbands who do that. If the wives are not there, they get all restless. So he'll die. If Rama dies, then his obedient brother called Lakshmana will also die. If these two die, then Bharata Shatrugna will naturally die. If these four die, the three mothers will die. If the seven die, all the citizens of Ayodhya will die and all the denizens of Kishkinda will die. My king Sugriva will die. If Sugriva dies, his elder son, brother Vali's son Angada will die. So, my single line of telling Rama, I searched for Sita, but I couldn't spot her. This sentence is enough in killing so many people. So Hanuman thought, why can't I search again? Let me research. That's when the concept of research came. People say, right, I research. What is research? So a person has searched with no conclusion. I go up, take the same topic and check if I can find one. That is researching. So he started researching. So this motivation came from within. You know, you get to see so many classes. Motivation classes, 3 days, 999 only for more contact. If you do all these classes, nothing is going to motivate you. Nobody can motivate one except for oneself. See, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita never motivated Arjuna. He just revealed the truth. The truth was so impactful that Arjuna was self-motivated after that. So motivation should come from within. No external factor can get to that. And that is the third important lesson besides communication and ethical values that you stand on Bhagavad Gita. The most final of the one is Paro Dharmaha Andrishamsyam. Andrishamsyam means forgiving. This, if it is there, I am sure most countries will have peaceful relations. See, if we have a problem in our northeastern part, China tells, don't forget 1962. That means they have neither forgotten nor forgiven. Here we tell, don't think that it's 1962, it's 2017. See, if war of words begin, then it will end up in war of missiles. So, Andrishamsyam Paro Dharmaha. And the best example in Bhagavad Gita that can be related to Mahabharata is this, which is the final of this. You must have heard about the Pandavas fighting on the game of dice with the Kauravas. On the Pandava side, who played the dice? தியூத விளையாட்டு பாண்டவர்கள் பக்கத்தில் இருந்து விளையாடியது யார்? யுதிஷ்டிரன். கௌரவர்கள் பக்கத்தில் யார் விளையாடி இருக்க வேண்டும்? துரியோதனா. But Duryodhana was very intelligent. He said, my health does not permit me. Today I went and checked my blood pressure. It was over 140 by 90. So the doctor has advised me to refrain from pickles and gambling. So I would request my uncle to play. Instead of him playing, it is the uncle who's playing, Shakuni. Shakuni, Shaku in Sanskrit means a bird. That is why you call her Shakuntala, Shakunam, Shakuni. Shakuni, Gandhari, they all belong to a region called as Gandharam, which is today Pakistan and Afghanistan. Erstwhile it was called KKM, from which Kaikeyi and Manthara belonged. So nothing has changed in that region. So, you had Shakuni who was to play for the Kauravas. Had Yudhishthira been diligent and prudent enough, he should have said, when your uncle is playing, let my uncle's son play. Who's his uncle's son? Krishna. Yudhishthira's own uncle was Vasudeva. Vasudeva's son was Krishna. Their uncle is playing, your uncle's son should have played. If he had played today, we wouldn't have got Bhagavad Gita at all. It would have stopped there. Shakuni would have lost, everything would have got topsy-turvy. They would have gone for Vanavasam and so on. But Yudhishthira was so confident of his victory that he said, let me play. And he played. That is when Draupadi was humiliated. Draupadi was brought, dragging to the middle of the court during her periods. So blood was just flowed on the floor. Her hair was plucked right through the steps and she was brought to the middle of the court. And that is when she asked, is it right to manhandle a woman like this, especially during her periods? Shouldn't you respect the other woman because it is a woman who has carried you? She said, I'm sure I'm not going to get justice from Duryodhana. Let me ask justice from Bhishmacharya, who's a person who has overlived. Bhishma, can you tell me justice? That's when the most benevolent of all acharyas called Bhishmacharya failed in his duty. He should have come and protected Draupadi, and he said, as per Article 32F and 54B, it's a very tight point. That is why Krishna saw to it that he got Vishnu Sahasranama from his mouth after all the blood was removed from the Sharatalpam. So she asked for justice, person after person. Nobody came to her rescue. That is when she decided that she take the grace of the Lord and she was protected. So goes the story. Now what happened after this? Krishna வந்து காப்பாத்தினார். Okay, எல்லாம் சபதம் பண்ணா. அப்புறம் எங்க போனாங்க பாண்டவாள்லாம்? They didn't. That's not the story. Be very careful. What happened was, the moment she was protected by the Lord, Dhritarashtra calls. He realizes that he has committed a grave mistake and tells her, you ask for boons. She tells, give back my husband's weapons, make my husbands free of slavery, and he grants them and they all go back to their kingdom. She tells her husbands that since you have all been onlookers when I was humiliated, we should all be remorseful about it. For that we have to go to Vanavasam. So, mind you, go and play the dice again with Kauravas. And that is when they lost it. They went for 12 years for Vanavasam and 1 year of incognito, which was called Ajnatavasam. In the 12 years of Vanavasam, the first year, Duryodhana wanted to check how these people are suffering. Some people take very good pride and happiness in seeing the others suffer. When I used to, I had some of my best friends. So while I used to be in the corporate life in the canteen, my friend used to come, Dushyanth, I've got some very good chicken gravy for you. See, if you just take the chicken, the gravy is left. Look at how tasty it is. So he expected me to get into the mouth-watering episode looking at his chicken. I barely have 1.5 idli, so it doesn't matter to me whether it's chicken or idli. So nevertheless, some people take pleasure in seeing the other person suffer. Duryodhana was that category. So he took the entire cavalry along and went to the middle of the forest to check how these people were suffering. So that's when he put his camp in a region that was demarcated for the Gandharvas. Those Gandharvas said, this is our territory, you cannot come, this is not Madurai. So you cannot come and play, keep your card anywhere. So move out of this place. So Duryodhana said, I am never used to budging, I will fight with you. And he fought against the Gandharvas. First he called his friend Karna. If you look at proper Mahabharata, Karna is a very jealous person. He is not of the persons that is being projected in the movies. And all that, if somebody sings in the super singer, the aunties and uncles in the houses start crying. Nothing of that sort is mentioned in Mahabharata. He is a very jealous person with no ethical value. So, he is like South Africa, who Karna, in the finals he will always lose. So, he came to fight against the Gandharvas. He lost the battle. Duryodhana was captured and he was dragged by the streets. That is when Duryodhana's wife called Bhanumati, she did not know what to do. Her husband and her husband's friend both are missing. So she went all the way running to the hermitage of the Pancha Pandavas and she fell at the feet of Yudhishthira, calling him, my dear brother Anna, please come and protect my husband. So immediately Yudhishthira told his brothers Bhima and Arjuna, see, Duryodhana has been imprisoned. They patted themselves, they said, what, those Gandharvas are to be appreciated. They have done what we couldn't do. So that is when Yudhishthira said, both of you go and rescue Duryodhana. So these people go. They finally rescue Duryodhana. Look at Duryodhana's position. Duryodhana wanted to see these people suffer. But now he ends up being rescued by them. So that is when Duryodhana is brought there and Bhima and Arjuna tell, Yudhishthira, take off his head. But Yudhishthira tells, it is very wrong to always keep remembering an unpleasant incident. Anrishramsyam paro dharmaha. We need to forgive this person. That is why we have Bhagavad Gita which talks about Bhakti Yogam, and Bhakti Yogam essentially talks about how to treat yourself at par with others. So Bhagavad Gita in a management perspective has communication skills for us, has ethical values to be practiced. At the same time, it has got values of Anushamsyam Paro Dharmaha, and parts of Ramayana teach us motivation. So be it Srimad Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Mahabharatam, especially Bhagavad Gita, all of these have a great lesson for us to know. And for your kind information, if you have got your calculators with you, what is that value in mathematics which introduces? Any value? What value? Some value which keeps on going. Pi value, right? Infinity is a value that it can go until some number, but pi value you keep getting numbers, but it's not terminating. 3.1416, so on and so on. And we have a belief that all of this knowledge has come from the West. You've got some pi about 600, 700 years back or more than that probably. I don't even know the history. But I'll tell you one verse from the works of Aryabhatta, who was a great mathematician who lived in the 455 AD period, roughly 1600, 1550 years back. He says, Chaturadhikam Sahasram. Chaturadhikam Sahasram. Or Chaturadhikam Shatam. What is Shatam? 100. Chaturadhikam, 4 more than 100, which is 104. Ashta Gunam. What is Ashta? 8. Gunam means qualities. The other meaning for Gunam is multiplication. So Ashta Gunam, 8 into 104. Chaturadhikam. Ashta Gunam, 104 into 8. I'll check who tells me the value now. 8. Plus Dva Sashti Sahasram. Sahasram is 1000. Shashti is 60. Yeah, Shashti of the Purti. Shashti is 60. Dwa is 2. Dwa Shashti is 62. 62 into 1000. Sahasram is 62,000. So you've got 62,000. Dwa Shashti Sahasram, which is 62,000. Chaturadhikam Ashtagunam, which is 832. So 832 plus 62,000 is 62,832. Divided by, now he is giving the value of a number called as Asanniva. Asannam means something which is very close by. Dwa Ayudha. Dwa is 2. Ayudha is 10,000. 2 into 10,000 is 20,000. Now 62,832 divided by 20,000. What is the value? 3.1416. So this is what he calls an Asanniva Chakram. In a circle you have to take this value. What is this value? Pi. See, you've got great scholars who have come in the tradition. Just because we don't have the patience and knowledge and the aptitude and the memory cells in us to read, it doesn't mean we come from a land of dullards. India has produced the greatest of the minds. But the worst thing about our country is we have content, we don't know how to market it. If you go to the West, when I go to the US, the lady would have just made a jamun. Wonderful! How did you make it? For one small jamun or even a slice of bread. But here, our mothers will end up making up pickles which go for about 20 days of this thing, and they'll say, I've just made a pickle. So humility comes as a part of our tradition, so it becomes very tough for us. Whereas in the West, they see everything with the element of exaggeration. Remember one particular message. We come from a very rich country. When I say rich, I'm not talking about the foreign exchange reserves. I'm not talking about the wealth that's accumulated in Ward A, C, D of Thiruvananthapuram temple. I'm talking about the literature that we have. Our literature is unparalleled. It is unsurpassed. It is matchless. The beauty is we are deficient in the language in which it was rendered, which is Sanskrit. And our rishis were deficient in the language that we know, which is English or Tamil. But none of the languages we know thoroughly. So that becomes another deficiency in us. So that is one. And finally, any speaker who comes, I don't know if you've heard of this, they'll say, each one of you has to work in a very different fashion. I don't believe in that. Because out of a group of 100 people, everybody starts behaving differently or acting differently or working differently. The person who is not acting differently will become different. Correct. 99 people are working differently. One is not even engaged in all this. He'll be the most different person there. So, a lecture is never meant to make managers out of 100 people. But I'm sure 10 years later or even 5 years later, one out of this crowd will be touching the heights. And that person will very soon be invited to be as a chief guest. So, kudos to your patience for having sat through this talk, the so-called brief talk. But my heartfelt wishes to the entire department, to the professors, to the coordinators, to the students and volunteers, and to, of course, the entire board and committee members of this college. Thanks again, and you're all very lucky to be in a city that has an ancient heritage and legacy, which is Chennai, and to be amidst one of the areas which is being celebrated by the Alvars, which says, Madama Mailai Thiruvallikeni Kandene. So Madama Mailai, this had mansions and apartments in those days, being one of the smart cities of those days. So you're all in the best of the cities, in the best of the localities, in the best of the colleges. So I'm sure the word best is going to be applied to you all, and you'll all be the most beautifulest of all. Is most beautifulest allowed in English? Why? What should I say? Most beautiful. Why? What is the rule which says that I should use more and most? What is the rule? When should I use more and most, and when should I use ER and EST? More, okay, comparative, and most is, but do I say more tall or taller? But why do I use ER there and not ER here? Huh? Quantify? That's okay. See, for example, intelligent, more intelligent and most intelligent. But there also I don't quantify intelligence, right? See, there's a rule by Wren and Martin who say that if the adjective has more than 2 syllables, you'll have to use more and most. Tall, it's a 1-syllable word. Big, 1-syllable word. Beautiful, 3 syllables. Intelligent, 4 syllables. So I have to use more and most. This is a general rule. But I said most beautifulest, which is wrong. It can never be beautifulest. It has to be only most beautiful. But why? Because in Midsummer's Night Dream, Shakespeare says the most beautifulest of the nights has arrived. And the commentator says, when you reach that ecstatic level of emotion, you don't have to follow grammatical rules. See, when you go at the end of the lecture, somebody who has not attended asks, how's the lecture? Ayyo! After that, the word is Nannaliya will come. But the word Ayyo gains so much of auspiciousness at that point in time. So likewise, all of you will be the most beautifulest of the managers that the world and your college is going to see. Thanks once again.